My dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the Haven, which is in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, just a stone's throw from the English Channel. We hope everyone is well and safe and happy in all respects in these troubled times. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Mahima Stotram by Srila Sanatana Goswami glorifies the Bhagavatam for what it can do and what it does. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Purāṇa Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho Kali Dvandoditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madhika Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahādana Man Nistādaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhuta dayin adinicho chitakada hanamuncha kadachin mam premna rit kantayokspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me, always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we've reached the 8th chapter of the 4th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Dhruva Mahārāja leaves home for the forest. There's a continuation of the descriptions of the sons of Swayambhuva Manu and the first generations of devotees, and first few generations of devotees in the beginning of the universe. Beginning with text 7. Swayambhuva Manu had 2 sons by his wife Shatarupa, and the names of these sons were Uttanapad and Priyavrata. Because both of them were descendants of a plenary expansion of Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they were very competent to rule the universe, to maintain and protect the citizens. Purport. It is said that these 2 kings, Uttanapad and Priyavrata, were specifically empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unlike the great king Rishabha, who was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Text 8. King Uttanapad had 2 queens named Suniti and Suruchi. Suruchi was much more dear to the king. Suniti, who had a son named Dhruva, was not his favorite. Purport. The great sage Maitreya wanted to describe the pious activities of the kings. Priyavrata was the first son of Swayambhuva Manu, and Uttanapad was the second. But the great sage Maitreya immediately began to speak of Dhruva Mahārāja, the son of Uttanapad, because Maitreya was very eager to describe pious activities. The incidents in the life of Dhruva Mahārāja are very attractive for devotees. From his pious actions, one can learn how one can detach himself from material possessions and how one can enhance one's devotional service by severe austerities and penances. By hearing the activities of pious Dhruva, one can enhance one's faith in God and can directly connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus one can very soon be elevated to the transcendental platform of devotional service. The example of Dhruva Mahārāja's austerities can immediately generate a feeling of devotional service in the hearts of the hearers. Text 9. Once upon a time, King Uttanapad was patting the son of Suruchi, Uttama, placing him on his lap. Dhruva Mahārāja was also trying to get on the king's lap, but the king did not very much welcome him. Text 10. While the child, Dhruva Mahārāja, was trying to get on the lap of his father, Suruchi, his stepmother, became very envious of the child, and with great pride she began to speak so as to be heard by the king himself. Purport. The king, of course, was equally affectionate toward both his sons, Uttama and Dhruva. So he had a natural inclination to take Dhruva as well as Uttama on his lap. But because of his favoritism towards his queen Suruchi, he could not welcome Dhruva Mahārāja, despite his feelings. King Uttanapad's feeling was understood by Suruchi, and therefore with great pride she began to speak about the king's affection for her. This is the nature of a woman. If a woman understands that her husband regards her as a favorite and is especially affectionate to her, she takes undue advantage. These symptoms are visible even in such an elevated society as the family of Swayambhuva Manu. Therefore it is concluded that the feminine nature of woman is present everywhere. Text 11. Queen Suruchi told Dhruva Mahārāja, "My dear child, you do not deserve to sit on the throne or on the lap of the king. Surely you are also the son of the king, but because you did not take your birth from my womb, you were not qualified to sit on your father's lap." Purport. Queen Suruchi very proudly informed Dhruva Mahārāja that to be the king's son was not the qualification for sitting on the lap or throne of the king. Rather, this privilege was dependent on one's having taken birth from her womb. In other words, she indirectly informed Dhruva Mahārāja that although he happened to be born of the king, he was considered an illegitimate son because of his birth from the womb of the other queen. Text 12. My dear child, you are unaware that you were born not of my womb, but of another woman. Therefore you should know that your attempt is doomed to failure. You were trying to fulfill a desire which is impossible to fulfill. Purport. The small child, Dhruva Mahārāja, was naturally affectionate toward his father, and he did not know that there was a distinction between his two mothers. This distinction was pointed out by Queen Suruchi, who informed him that since he was a child, he did not understand the distinction between the two queens. This is another statement of Queen Suruchi's pride. Text 13. If you would all desire to rise to the throne of the king, then you have to undergo severe austerities. First of all, you must satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana. And then, when you are favored by him because of such worship, you shall have to take your next birth from my womb. Purport. Suruchi was so envious of Dhruva Mahārāja that she indirectly asked him to change his body. According to her, first of all he had to die, then take his next body in her womb, and only then would it be possible for Dhruva Mahārāja to ascend to the throne of his father. Text 14. The sage Maitreya said, "My dear Vidura, as a snake when struck by a stick breathes very heavily, Dhruva Mahārāja, having been struck by the strong words of his stepmother, began to breathe very heavily because of great anger. When he saw that his father was silent and did not protest, he immediately left the palace and went to his mother." Text 15. When Dhruva Mahārāja reached his mother, his lips were trembling in anger, and he was crying very grievously. Queen Suniti immediately lifted her son onto her lap, while the palace residents, who had heard all the harsh words of Suruchi, related everything in detail. Thus Suniti also became greatly aggrieved. Text 16. This incident was unbearable to Suniti's patience. She began to burn as if in forest fire, and in her grief she became just like a burnt leaf, and so lamented. As she remembered the words of her co-wife, her bright lotus-like face filled with tears, and thus she spoke. Purport. When a man is aggrieved, he feels exactly like a burnt leaf in a forest fire. Suniti's position was like that. Although her face was as beautiful as a lotus flower, it dried up because of the burning fire caused by the harsh words of her co-wife. Text 17. She also was breathing very heavily, and she did not know the factual remedy for the painful situation. Not finding any remedy, she said to her son, "My dear son, do not wish for anything inauspicious for others. Anyone who inflicts pains upon others suffers himself from that pain." Text 18. Suniti said, "My dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi is so, because the king, your father, does not consider me his wife or even his maidservant. He feels ashamed to accept me. Therefore it is a fact that you have taken birth from the womb of an unfortunate woman, and by being fed from her breast, you have grown up." Text 19. "My dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi, your stepmother, although very harsh to hear, is factual. Therefore, if you desire at all to sit on the same throne as your stepbrother, Uttama, then give up your envious attitude and immediately try to execute the instructions of your stepmother. Without further delay, you must engage yourself in worshipping the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead." Purport. The harsh words used by Suruchi to her stepson were true, because unless one is favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot achieve any success in life. Man proposes, God disposes. Suniti, the mother of Dhruva Maharaj, agreed with her co-wife's advice that Dhruva engage himself in the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indirectly, the words of Suruchi were a benediction for Dhruva Maharaj, for because of the influence of his stepmother's words, he became a great devotee. Text 20. Suniti continued, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so great that simply by worshipping his lotus feet, your great-grandfather, Lord Brahma, acquired the necessary qualifications to create this universe. Although he is unborn and is the chief of all living creatures, he is situated in that exalted post because of the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom even great yogis worship by controlling the mind and regulating the life air, prana. Purport. Suniti cited the example of Lord Brahma, who was Dhruva Maharaja's great-grandfather. Although Brahma was also a living being, by his penance and austerity, he acquired the exalted position of creator of this universe by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. To become successful in any attempt, one not only has to undergo severe penances and austerities, but also must be dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This indication has been given to Dhruva Maharaj by his stepmother and was now confirmed by his own mother, Suniti. Text 21. Suniti informed her son, your grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, executed great sacrifices with distribution of charity, and thereby, with unflinching faith and devotion, he worshipped and satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By acting in that way, he achieved the greatest success in material happiness, and afterwards achieved liberation, which is impossible to obtain by worshipping the demigods. Purport. The success of one's life is measured by one's material happiness in this life and liberation in the next. Such success can be achieved only by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The words ekamatya mean concentrating one's mind on the Lord without deviation. This process of undeviating worship of the Supreme Lord is also expressed in Bhagavad Gita as ananya bhak, that which is impossible to obtain from any other source. It is also mentioned here. Other source. We'll read that last part. This process of undeviating worship of the Supreme Lord is also expressed in Bhagavad Gita as ananya bhak. That which is impossible to obtain from any other source is also mentioned here. Other source refers to worship of the demigods. It is especially stressed here that the opulence of Manu was due to his undeviating faithfulness in the transcendental service of the Lord. One who diverts his mind to worshipping many demigods to obtain material happiness is considered bereft of intelligence. If anyone wants even material happiness, he can worship the Supreme Lord. He can worship the Supreme Lord without deviation. And persons who are desirous of liberation can also worship the Supreme Lord and achieve their goal of life. Text 22. My dear boy, you should also take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very kind to his devotees. Persons seeking liberation from the cycle of birth and death always take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Becoming purified by executing your allotted occupation, just situate the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your heart, and without deviating for a moment, engage always in his service. Purport. The system of Bhakti Yoga described by Queen Suniti to her son is the standard way of God realization. Everyone can continue in his constitutional occupational duties and at the same time keep the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart. This was also instructed by the Lord himself to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Go on fighting, but keep me within your mind. That should be the motto of every honest person seeking perfection in Krishna consciousness. In this connection, Queen Suniti advised her son that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Bhritya Vatsala, which indicates that he is very kind to his devotees. She said, "You came to me crying, having been insulted by your stepmother, but I am unable to do any good for you. But Krishna is so kind to his devotees that if you go to him, then the combined kindness of millions of mothers like me will be surpassed by his affectionate and tender dealings. When everyone else fails to mitigate one's misery, Krishna is able to help the devotee." Queen Suniti also stressed that the process of approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not easy, but is sought after by great sages who are very advanced in spiritual realization. Queen Suniti also indicated by her instruction that Dhruva Mahārāja was only a small child, 5 years old, and it was not possible for him to purify himself by the way of karma kanda. But by the process of bhakti yoga, even a child less than 5 years old, or anyone of any age, can be purified. That is the special significance of bhakti yoga. Therefore she advised him not to accept worship of the demigods or any other process, but simply to take to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the result would be all perfection. As soon as one places the Supreme Personality of Godhead within one's heart, everything becomes easy and successful. Text 23. My dear Dhruva, as far as I am concerned, I do not find anyone who can mitigate your distress but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose eyes are like lotus petals. Many demigods, such as Lord Brahma, seek the pleasure of the Goddess of Fortune, but the Goddess of Fortune herself, with a lotus flower in her hand, is always ready to render service to the Supreme Lord. Purport. Suniti pointed out herewith that the benediction received from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that received from the demigods are not on an equal level. Foolish persons say that no matter whom one worships, one will get the same result. But actually, that is not a fact. In Bhagavad Gita, it is also said that benedictions received from the demigods are all temporary and are meant for the less intelligent. In other words, because the demigods are all materialistically conditioned souls, although they are situated in very exalted positions, their benedictions cannot be permanent. Permanent benediction is spiritual benediction, since a spirit soul is eternal. It is also said in Bhagavad Gita that only persons who have lost their intelligence go to worship the demigods. Therefore, Suniti told her son that she should not seek the mercy of the demigods, but should directly approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead to mitigate his misery. Material objects are controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his different potencies, and specifically the Goddess of Fortune. Therefore, those who are after material opulences seek the pleasure or mercy of the Goddess of Fortune. Even the highly placed demigods worship the Goddess of Fortune. But the Goddess of Fortune, Mahalakshmi herself, is always seeking the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone, therefore, who takes to the worship of the Supreme Lord automatically receives the blessings of the Goddess of Fortune. At this stage of life, Dhruva Maharaj was seeking material opulences, and his mother advised rightly that even for material opulences, it is better to worship not the demigods, but the Supreme Lord. Although a pure devotee does not seek benedictions from the Supreme Lord for material advancement, it is stated in Bhagavad Gita that pious persons go to the Lord even for material benedictions. A person who goes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead for material gain is gradually purified in association with the Supreme Lord. Thus he becomes free from all material desires and is elevated to the platform of spiritual life. Unless one is raised to the spiritual platform, it is not possible for him to completely transcend all material contamination. Suniti, the mother of Dhruva, was a far-seeing woman, and therefore she advised her son to worship the Supreme Lord and no one else. The Lord is described herein as lotus-eyed, Padma Palasha Lochanat. When a person is fatigued, if he sees a lotus flower, all his fatigue can be immediately reduced to nil. Similarly, when an aggrieved person sees the lotus face of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, immediately all his grief is reduced. A lotus flower is also an insignia in the hand of Lord Vishnu, as well as in the hand of the Goddess of Fortune. The worshippers of the Goddess of Fortune and Lord Vishnu together are certainly very opulent in all respects, even in material life. The Lord is sometimes described as Shiva Virinchi Nutam, which means that Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma also offered their respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana. Text 24. Maitreya, the great sage Maitreya continued. The instruction of Dhruva Maharaja's mother, Suniti, was actually meant for fulfilling his desired objective. Therefore, after deliberate consideration and with intelligence and fixed determination, he left his father's house. Purport. Both the mother and the son were lamenting Dhruva Maharaja's having been insulted by his stepmother and his father's not having taken any step on this issue. But mere lamentation is useless. One should find out the means to mitigate one's lamentation. Thus, both mother and son decided to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, because that is the only solution to all material problems. It is indicated in this connection that Dhruva Mahārāja left his father's capital city to go to a secluded place to search out the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is the instruction of Prahlāda Mahārāja also that if one is seeking peace of mind, he should free himself from all contamination of family life and take shelter of the Supreme Godhead by going to the forest. To the Gaudiya Vaishnava, this forest is the forest of Vrinda, or Vrindavan. If one takes shelter of Vrindavan under Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani, certainly all the problems of his life are solved very easily. Text 25. The great sage Narada overheard this news, and understanding all the activities of Dhruva Mahārāja, he was struck with wonder. He approached Dhruva, and touching the boy's head with his all-virtuous hand, he spoke as follows. Purport. When Dhruva Mahārāja was talking with his mother, Suniti, all of the incidents that had taken place in the palace, when Dhruva Mahārāja was talking with his mother, Suniti, of all the incidents that had taken place in the palace, Narada was not present. Thus the question may be raised, how Narada overheard all these topics. The answer is that Narada is Trikalagya. He is so powerful that he can understand the past, present, and future of everyone's heart, just like the Supersoul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, after understanding the strong determination of Dhruva Mahārāja, Narada came to help him. It may be explained in this way. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is present in everyone's heart, and as soon as he understands that a living entity is serious about entering devotional service, he sends his representative. In this way, Narada was sent to Dhruva Mahārāja. This is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Guru Krishna Prasadi Poi Bhakti Lata Bij. By the grace of the spiritual master and Krishna, one can enter into devotional service. Because of Dhruva Mahārāja's determination, Krishna, the Supersoul, immediately sent his representative, Narada, to initiate him. 26. How wonderful are the powerful Kshatriyas. They cannot tolerate even a slighter infringement upon their prestige. Just imagine, this boy is only a small child, yet harsh words from his stepmother proved unbearable to him. Purport. The qualifications of the Kshatriyas are described in Bhagavad Gita. Two important qualifications are to have a sense of prestige and not to flee from battle. It appears that the Kshatriya blood within the body of Dhruva Mahārāja was naturally very active. If the Brahminical, Kshatriya, or Vaishya culture is maintained in a family, naturally the sons and grandsons inherit the spirit of the particular class. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, the samskara, or the reformatory system, is maintained very rigidly. If one fails to observe the reformatory measures current in the family, one is immediately degraded to a lower standard of life. Text 27. The great sage Narada told Dhruva, "My dear boy, you are only a little boy whose attachment is to sports and other frivolities. Why are you so affected by words insulting your honor. Purport. Ordinarily, if a child is rebuked as a rascal or fool, he smiles and does not take such insulting words very seriously. Similarly, if words of honor are offered, he does not appreciate them. But in the case of Dhruva Mahārāja, the Kshatriya spirit was so strong that he could not tolerate a slight insult from his stepmother, which injured his Kshatriya prestige. Text 28. My dear Dhruva, if you feel that your sense of honor has been insulted, you still have no cause for dissatisfaction. This kind of dissatisfaction is another feature of the illusory energy. Every living entity is controlled by his previous actions, and therefore there are different varieties of life for enjoying or suffering. Purport. In the Vedas it is said that the living entity is always uncontaminated and unaffected by material association. The living entity gets different types of material bodies because of his previous fruitive actions. If, however, one understands the philosophy that as a living spirit soul, he has an affinity for neither suffering nor enjoyment, then he is considered to be a liberated person. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 1854, Brahmabhuta Prasanatma. When one is actually situated on the transcendental platform, he has nothing for which to lament and nothing for which to hanker. Narada Rishi first of all wanted to impress upon Dhruva Mahārāja that he was only a child. He should not have been affected by words of insult or honor. And if he were so developed as to understand honor and insult, then this understanding should have been applied in his own life. He should have known that honor and dishonor are both destined only by one's previous actions. Therefore, one should not be sorry or happy under any circumstances. And that brings us to over 8 o'clock. So we'll stop here and start again tomorrow at 29, text 29, and happily wait for the reflections of the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Dhruva Mahārāja ki jai.
First is from Rati Manjari.
Rati Manjari, first off the blocks again. Hare Krishna.
She says, Jai Guru Maharaj, the daily blessing.
Hare Krishna. Yes, it's like when we sit down to read the Bhagavatam, it's like wherever we are, whatever we feel like, it's home sweet home.
Next is from Gopakanya.
Oh, hi. Gopakanya Devidasi, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, and all assembled sages, daily reading Ki Jai. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam.
Jai, Haribol.
And this is from April O'Grady.
April O'Grady, Hare Krishna, welcome aboard.
Hello, just started following you. Hope I'm not too late. May I have a reading before you go?
Well, I'm not going anywhere. I don't plan to go anywhere, at least not for a while. So yes, of course. Hare Krishna. We have our reading every day. It starts between 7:15 and 7:30, usually closer to around 7:20, 12:25. And you're certainly welcome to come every day and hear. Hare Krishna.
She says thank you with a smiley face.
Hare Krishna. Thanks to you.
Sudevi Dasi says Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Sudevi Dasi, Hare Krishna to you too.
And from Hannah.
Yes, Bhakti and Hannah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We read together today that one who takes shelter of Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani, has all his problems solved easily. Can you please share a little bit about Srimati Radharani's mercy? Hare Krishna.
Srimati Radharani's mercy is unlimited. Srimati Radharani is the internal pleasure-giving potency of Krishna. She's the feminine counterpart of Krishna. Srimati Radharani and Krishna are actually one soul in two forms. But still Radharani is considered to be expanded from Krishna as his internal potency. So from the internal potency, all the devotional service, the aspects of devotional service, the science of devotional service come from her. Therefore, we say Hare Krishna. Hare is the vocative form of Hara, who is a name of Srimati Radharani. So we say Radharani's name first because we can't go to Krishna directly. We have to go through Srimati Radharani. We have to learn how to serve Krishna through the blessings of Srimati Radharani. And therefore, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. Krishna decided that it was time for him to find out what it was about him that Radharani appreciated so much and what she felt when she was with him. So, for these reasons, he had these feelings at the exact moment when the incarnation was due to come to clear up the degraded society of the Kali Yuga. And so he came in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with the mood, who is Krishna, in the mood of Radharani. So by Radharani's mercy, the Krishna consciousness movement is spreading all over the world. So all of us are recipients of the mercy of Srimati Radharani. Without her mercy, we cannot perform devotional service. And how to get that mercy is to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Is to try to help others come to Krishna. This is Radharani's mentality. She wants everyone to come to be with Krishna. Srimati Radharani is completely selfless, in her service to Krishna, and she is she has the highest degree of humility. She thinks that everyone else is a devotee except for her. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that knowledge begins with humility. And by Srimati Radharani's example, we see that knowledge ends also in humility. But the humility at the end of knowledge is utter humility, in which one respects everyone as superior to oneself. So anyone who's thinking that they're going toward Srimati Radharani, but thinking that they're in a higher position, or looking down on others that aren't aspiring for that level or mood of devotional service, they're living in an hallucination, actually. Because if you are going toward Radharani, then you must be becoming more and more humble, if you're actually going there. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya spoke the Shikshastakam, in which he said, Trinadapi sunichina, turodapi sahishtana, amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. If we want to be able to chant Hare Krishna continuously, forever, then we must be more tolerant than a tree, more humble than a blade of grass, and we should offer all respects to others and not expect any respect for ourselves. That is the teaching of Srimati Radharani through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna.
And from Achyuta Gopi Devi Dasi.
Achyuta Gopi Devi Dasi. Hare Krishna.
She says, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
From Rati Manjari.
Yes, Rati Manjari.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Tonight I was happy to retrieve a comforting as well as exciting statement that I was fond of hearing when I was younger, namely this, in the purport of 4.8.22. Quote, in this connection, Queen Suniti advised her son that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Bhritya Vatsala, which indicates that he is very kind to his devotees. She said, you came to me crying, having been insulted by your stepmother, but I am unable to do any good for you. But Krishna is so kind to his devotees that if you go to him, then the combined kindness of millions of mothers like me will be surpassed by his affectionate and tender dealings. When everyone else fails to mitigate one's misery, Krishna is able to help the devotee. Unquote. Personally, I love to hear how the love Lord Krishna has for us is unmatched by anyone else and is practically unlimited. It gives me hope to go on endeavoring to become Krishna conscious.
Hare Krishna. And who said it? Who brought that out?
Rati Manjari.
Rati Manjari. Very good. Wonderful.
The next is from Subbarao.
Yes, Subbarao.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for your daily readings. One of the gems is from 4.8.20 purport. Quote, to become successful in any attempt, one not only has to undergo severe penances and austerities, but also must be dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unquote. Another one is from 4.8.24 purport. Quote, but mere lamentation is useless. One should find out the means to mitigate one's lamentation. Thus both mother and son decided to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord because that is the only solution to all material problems.
Very nice.
Unquote. Every one of us have unpleasant events and gets perturbed and agitated mentally. Dhruva Maharaj had a good counsel from his mother and he decided to follow the good counsel of worshipping Lord Sri Vasudeva. Our prayers should be, come what may. Lord, please help me to surmount these issues. In this connection, I remember the verse from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 2.3.10. Akama sarva kama va moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yadeta purusham param. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the Personality of Godhead. Daily readings, Ki Jai.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Subharam. So, this is the point. This is the urgent need of the day. That we may know something, we may learn what's in the books, but we need to apply them to our own selves. And if we do that, to the degree that we do that, then we become fixed in devotional service, and we attract the attention of Krishna. And when Krishna chooses us, then we can go back to Godhead. We can't go back to Godhead until Krishna chooses us. And he chooses us when he sees how intensely desirous we are of pleasing him and his devotees, and trying to help the conditioned souls. This is the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Come back to him. Hare Krishna. When Lord Chaitanya went to Haridas Thakur, and he was in anxiety, and he said, Haridas, how will the conditioned souls be delivered? And Haridas's immediate response was, oh Lord, please, don't be in anxiety. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, this is service. This is devotional service. That we act, think, feel, will, and act in a way to try to relieve the anxiety that Lord Chaitanya feels for the conditioned souls, the suffering conditioned souls. This is real service. Hare Krishna. I thank you all for your wonderful, as usual, mining of the gems from Srila Prabhupada's purports and allowing us to see them and examine them and relish hearing them. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Brinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. See you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same topic. The ongoing saga of Dhruva Mahārāja. It's wonderful. Hare Krishna.